Hey everyone, my name is Eric Hopkins, aka JEL, and welcome back to the Dragon's Den. Here's my AEW recap where I go over all the big storylines and news coming out of AEW. We'll start off this week with AEW Collision. Obviously, every week I think Collision's got a lot of fun matches on the show. Like I said, they've been doing a lot better with their storylines and stuff that they've been adding and building around that show. At the same time, sometimes there's certain things on the show that doesn't really hit as much for me. I would love to see Collision kind of become more of like a big, heavy storyline show, but I think they are striking a decent balance, all things considered. We got the in-ring return for Darby Allin here on Collision. He gets a one-on-one victory over the Beast Mortos. And after the match was over, Darby Allin says, "I'm ready to die at Blood and Guts." And this is one MFer in wrestling who absolutely means it, according to this X-Post here for sure. So yeah, and as we find out a little bit later on in the show, Darby Allin wasn't kidding. He was willing to put it all on the line at Blood and Guts for sure. But yeah, good to see him back in action in one-on-one competition. But then we kind of had a bit of a sad moment here on AEW Collision. Hikaru Shida and Sky Blue in a one-on-one matchup. Hikaru Shida kind of did like a dive off the apron, and Sky Blue went to catch her, and unfortunately, it appears that she broke her ankle during this catch here. It doesn't appear to be either one of the ladies' faults for sure, but just kind of an unfortunate incident where she caught her, and the weight kind of came down on her ankle, and she kind of blew it out. Her boyfriend, Kyle Fletcher, obviously is taking care of her at home. He said, "We got her home, everyone. Dr. Kyle is on the clock. So ye freaking haw." So so at least it's good to see Sky Blue in good spirits. We wish her a speedy recovery, and hopefully she'll be able to come back from this injury soon. We had a debut on AEW Collision. We had Hologram make his debut here. I've got to tell you, I don't know where they found this guy. At first, when I saw the vignettes for Hologram, a part of me goes, "Is that Ricochet from WWE?" Apparently, that was not to be the case. Obviously, as soon as he took off this glowing H garb that he was wearing here as he come down to the ring. And you can even see here, he doesn't really have the abs that Ricochet does, or the tattoos for that matter. So obviously right away I go, well, it's definitely not Ricochet. But I don't know if they found this guy in Mexico or wherever they found him, but I got to admit, Hologram was actually pretty impressive here in the ring, no doubt about it. So I was thoroughly impressed with Hologram here. I thought he had a good matchup here for his first singles match in AEW, getting a victory here. But yeah, they've got a lot of great luchadors in AEW with Commander and Rey Fenix and many others. So I think Hologram will definitely fit in like a glove for sure. So it's definitely interesting. A little bit new of a gimmick here for sure. A little bit, when I first heard Hologram, though, I'm not going to lie. My fear was, oh no, it's going to be like Glacier from WCW. So I'm happy to report it wasn't like that. But at the same time, I thought he did some cool luchador moves and stuff. So I was absolutely happy to see that. So yeah, I think in a way, I'm excited to see where they take him, and we'll see what they do with him. We got potentially the end of a bit of a blood feud here between Deonna Purrazzo and Thunder Rosa. But it was a lumberjill match, or a lumberjack match, I guess they were calling it. They didn't actually call it lumberjill here, even though it was all the ladies on the outside, a lot of them from Ring of Honor for sure. But the match ended up with Taya Valkyrie from Ring of Honor, obviously Johnny Wrestling's wife here, handing a turnbuckle to Deonna Purrazzo, and Deonna Purrazzo used that to crack La Mera Thunder Rosa in the head to get the victory here, and hopefully the end of this feud. In my opinion, they've kind of been doing this a little long here. So not saying that the feuds have been necessarily bad or anything. I just feel like it's kind of gone on a little too long for my taste. So hopefully this is the payoff here, and this is the blow off, and we'll see where they go with it, as if they actually end up continuing it or not. But at the same time, hopefully this is the end of it for me personally. I just kind of rather see both these ladies move on to something more. But yeah, I thought it was overall a fun match, all things considered. These ladies worked their butts off, so I was happy to see that, and I enjoyed myself. So for a Collision matchup, I didn't think it was too awfully bad. Of course, the most important thing coming out of AEW Collision this week was, of course, we had the vacant Trios Championships being decided here between the Bang Bang Gang and the Patriarchy. And apparently, by the end of this matchup, we had a little help on the outside from Nick Wayne's mother as she sprayed something in the eyes of Juice Robinson that allowed Christian Cage to get the victory here, as they now hold the six-man Trios Championships here. The Patriarchy are now your new World Trios Championships here on AEW. So yeah, I think this is good for the Patriarchy. I think it kind of keeps them involved, especially until Jay White's able to come back from his injury, which I did find out this week that he is officially injured. Hopefully it's not nothing serious. I think he might be a shorter term injury, so hopefully that's the case. And I think when Jay White comes back, Christian versus Jay White could definitely be something they end up doing. I don't know if it'd be back in time for All In or not, but at the same time, I'd love to see Jay White get that singles push a little bit more moving forward. And I think the Trios Championships moving forward with the Patriarchy makes a lot of sense, because if Jay White comes back, it is kind of pushed as more of a babyface character, because obviously the Bang Bang Gang are over as babyfaces for the most part. I think it'd be great to just kind of turn them into a babyface group to some degree, and with Jay White leading that, obviously he's getting the cheers from the fans. Everybody loves Juice Robinson and the Guns as well, so we'll see what they end up doing with it, but at the same time, I think it makes more sense to put the Trios Championships on the Patriarchy for the time being. AEW Dynamite this week. Obviously, I thought on paper was pretty much centered around one big match, kind of like SmackDown was this week on my WWE recap, which you can also check out here on the channel. But Blood and Guts is obviously with the main focus of the show this week. The show looked to be pretty packed, looked to be pretty sold out for sure. So I'm just happy to see the AEW starting to get some of the crowds to come back a little bit here. Obviously, it's more of an important show with the Blood and Guts stipulation here with the War Games style matchup here in AEW. But it's just good to see the crowds flourishing here. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about, oh, AEW you can't sell it this, they can't sell tickets. Love to see TNA try this right now, by the way. But AEW is doing a good job. That's no knock on TNA, by the way. Nothing against TNA at all. But at the same time, AEW is on a different level than TNA. And yes, they're probably never going to be on WWE's particular level, maybe. But at the same time, they're selling out good crowds like this. It's actually not too bad. So if anybody's going to be giving competition to WWE anytime soon, it's AEW. But at the same time, at the end of the day, that really doesn't matter to me. As long as AEW is putting on good shows, I don't care that people who want to have this tribalism about WWE or AEW. I'm just happy to see both companies doing well. So here on the channel, I will praise both companies when they do well, and I'll criticize them both when they don't do so well. But so far, as of this year, they're both on the right track, in my opinion. So good to see that. Dynamite opened up this week with MJF coming out celebrating his AEW International Championship victory over Will Ospreay last week. However, MJF said that he's done with the International Championship. He threw the International Championship literally in a trash can at ringside, and he unveiled the American Championship here. So everybody online is freaking out about this. Yet another AEW Championship here. Look, I mean, WWE is introducing, women's North American championships. They're probably going to be introducing a women's Intercontinental and women's United States Championship in WWE as well. Now, at the same time, those are going to be new titles. This, I don't think, is new. So, look, I understand, but before I get into that, I actually think the belt looks really nice. I mean, I like the nameplates. One of them, I think the one on the far left here says something along the effect of, better than a UK, and they know it because they've got a UK flag over there. And on the right-hand side, I think it says only country that matters. So I think that the nameplates are creative. I actually like that. I think this is going to be a title that MJF holds during this feud with Will Ospreay. I don't think this is a new championship. I understand the International Championship has gone through a couple name changes already. When it first came out, it was the All-Atlantic title. Now it's the International Championship, and now they're calling it the American Championship. But again, the way this promo segment ended with Will Ospreay coming out and defending, the International Championship name against the American Championship that, MJF is dubbing it from. Obviously, Will Ospreay is from the UK, so it makes a lot of sense. So it's all going to be a storyline that they play into going into All In. Obviously, Will Ospreay at the end of this promo come out and said that he's got an international championship match. He called it the International Championship against MJF at All In on his home turf. So this is all storyline. This is not a new belt that AEW is introducing, or they're not changing the name long term, in my opinion. If Will Ospreay doesn't win the match and get the title back, maybe MJF continues to call it the American Championship, then we'll talk about it then. But for right now, I think it's pure storyline. It's like when he had the Triple B belt, or like when John Cena had the spinner belt in WWE. It's kind of something that's designed for him, and he's going to use it to play into the storyline going into All In with Will Ospreay. So in that case, it makes a lot of sense. And this picture obviously shows the American flag that MJF also dropped, with the stars being replaced by faces of MJF, which I thought was pretty funny and hilarious. So at the same time, this is just MJF being a heel and just saying that all other countries don't matter, which, I mean, I'm a proud American too. I happen to agree that America is the greatest country on the face of the planet, despite all of our issues right now. But at the same time, this, again, it's just going to play into the storyline moving forward. And I think it's going to be absolutely great by the time we get to All In about a month's time. So just everybody needs to calm down with the AEW's breaking up another belt. Just chill out, all right? I think they've got a plan for this for sure. And everybody also needs to remember this too. Later on in the night, Pac had a match as well. And when he came out to the ring, it said he was the #1 contender for the AEW International title. So again, everybody's like, oh, they're forgetting Pac. Did you forget that Pac won the #1 contendership for the international title? They clearly haven't forgotten. They made a point to put that on the lower chyron there, so you know that when Pac came out that he is still the #1 contender for the AEW International title. Again, this could become a multi-man match at All In. We'll just have to wait and see. And of course, Ospreay and MJF and their singles feud could continue to play out, even though there could be more men out of this match. Or Pac could get a championship opportunity after All In. However, I think Pac will still be involved in this somehow or another, because Pac even mentioned in one of his promos that he wants his Wembley moment, his All In moment that he was unable to have before. So he wants to have that again to kind of sell it like WrestleMania, having a Wembley moment. So at the same time, they're not forgetting about it. Just everybody needs to be patient here. I promise you, AEW is going to pay this off with Pac as well. So let's just have some little patience and see where they take it. We had Chris Jericho versus Minoru Suzuki for the FTW Championship here. Not going to lie, the majority of this match seemed like 4 or 5 minutes straight. Both men just chopped each other. That went through a commercial break, as a matter of fact, in picture. But Chris Jericho obviously got the short end of the stick there with his chest being all bloody. There was some images going around that was a little bit more dour. I wanted to keep it a little bit clean here on the channel, so this is about as good as I can get. But at the end of the day, Chris Jericho wins the matchup here against Minoru Suzuki. Not the greatest match on the show, no doubt about it. Between two guys who are a little bit older up there in age for sure. But it served its purpose here, no doubt about it. And of course, at the end of the match, we had Big Bill and Brian Keith come out to try to lay the boots to Minoru Suzuki, which brought out a returning Katsuyori Shibata. Kind of, he had his arm injury not too long ago, and he come out and attacked and chased off the Learning Tree faction here for sure. So again, we may be slowly getting the members of Samoa Joe's team with Hook and Shibata kind of coming back a little bit slowly at a time to eventually build up to a match against the Learning Tree 3-on-3. I imagine probably at some point, maybe at All In. We'll have to wait and see. I imagine Hook will be the next one to return, and Samoa Joe will be the one to return toward the end. But we'll have to do that a little bit by a little bit here as we go on through the next few weeks for sure. But yeah, I mean, all things considered, I didn't think this was a great match between Jericho and Minoru Suzuki. The chops were brutal. Sucks to be Chris Jericho. He's going to feel that tomorrow. But yeah, Minoru Suzuki, he kind of had a little bit of a rough match with the Butcher last week on Rampage too. A lot of that I attributed to the Butcher. Didn't feel like he was giving some good chops to Minoru Suzuki. It was almost like he was a little timid to hit Suzuki for sure. But Suzuki's one of those guys like, just hit me, man. So at the same time, it could have been a little bit of a language barrier there. I'm not sure. But Minoru Suzuki, I think, is definitely someone to be respected in the world of pro wrestling as well. So, and Chris Jericho too, for that matter, no doubt about it. I just thought that these two guys could have had a better match. But all things considered, I think it served its purpose to build toward the fuse between Samoa Joe's crew and the Learning Tree. We got a matchup between Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida. Obviously, a long-standing history between those two young ladies since the inception of AEW, no doubt about it. Of course, toward the end of the match, Britt Baker got the win over Hikaru Shida with the lockjaw. That, of course, at the end of the match brought out Mercedes Mone, who distracted Britt Baker. And Mercedes Mone says she's not going to give her a TBS Championship match at All In after all. So a lot of the fans saying that, well, Britt Baker just coming back and getting a title match. Well, it doesn't sound like that may be the case. Now, maybe they ended up building to that, and maybe that's where they end up going. But I kind of wonder if we're going to get something different here, as we got the Kamille making her AEW debut here, and she attacked Britt Baker and joined forces with the CEO, Mercedes Mone, being the Diesel to Mercedes HBK, as it were. If you remember Diesel and Shawn Michaels being together, that's actually a decent little comparison there, no doubt about it. But this definitely sounds to me, as many other people on X have been speculating tonight, that Britt Baker could be teaming up with the returning Jamie Hayter. And that could be the match we end up getting at All In. Jamie Hayter returning to her home country in the UK as well. Knowing that fact, I think it's all but confirmed that Jamie Hayter will be returning, and this is going to now be officially a tag team match here at All In, and we may be getting Britt Baker versus Monet for the TBS Championship later down the line. Jamie Hayter could challenge for the TBS Championship later down the line. So again, this is more, I think we just don't need to rush into it right now. I like what AEW is doing in that regard, not rushing too far into it, kind of letting it play out slowly here, much like the Mariah May and Toni Storm stuff has done, and now it's at a fever pitch, and it's actually going to pay off at AEW. I think that's what they need to do here with Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, and Kamille and Mercedes Mone. So I think this is great all the way around. Good, smart booking, in my opinion. And let's pay this off slowly. I think it'll be better than in the long run. Speaking of Mariah May and Toni Storm, Mariah May has a quick match here. And then, of course, after the match was over, Toni Storm makes her return following the beatdown that Mariah May gave her a few weeks back, where she bloodied her up and completely betrayed her after winning the Owen Hart Cup women's tournament. Toni Storm looked absolutely out of her mind here, talking about how, she grabbed a mic as a brawl ensued. And, of course, after the brawl ensued, security kind of separated everything. And then, of course, Toni Storm grabbed the mic and said, "Are you prepared to die? Because I am." So she was absolutely out of her mind here. So, again, setting up this big matchup here going into All In for the AEW Women's World Championship here between these two ladies who have been friends for a long time, been protege to master to apprentice, so to speak. So at the same time, I think this is going to be great because they've taken their time. They've built it up slowly over the course of the last year, and it's finally going to explode at the AEW All In. I can't wait to see that. I think it's going to be great. So again, good proper booking in my opinion. Tony Khan's done a great job booking these women's feuds, especially here in the last few months. So obviously, this entire show was built around Blood and Guts. Their big payoff. This is the big feud between AEW and the Elite here. Obviously, this is a lot of stuff going on here, so I'm going to do my best to explain some of this, so bear with me here. Big match, a lot of things going on. I highly recommend you go check it out because it was a big-time battle and bloody warfare, obviously, hence the name Blood and Guts. Definitely lived up to the moniker this year. Jack Perry and Darby Allin were the first competitors for their respective teams. As Darby Allin entered the cage, Jack Perry attacked him. He beat Darby Allin all around the ring and used the cage and steel steps to inflict damage. When they finally got in the ring, Jack Perry used a trash can and extension cord as weapons. The Elite gave itself the advantage in a previous promo segment earlier on in the show where they had a double-sided coin, or that were the same thing. So when they flipped it, it was going to be the same result no matter what. So they kind of cheated here for sure. Nicholas Jackson was the next man to enter the ring with a briefcase and a chair. Then Briscoe was the first person to show a significant amount of blood after he entered the matchup, having his face scraped against the cage. Considering the name of this stipulation, it was kind of surprising that it took as long as it did for someone to bleed, but especially in AEW sometimes. But they still had a long way to go. John Moxley wasn't in the match, so apparently, they took a little bit longer. Pacing themselves was smart. We saw several different weapons used throughout the first half of this match, including tacks, a board covered in barbed wire, Anthony Bowens using a real pair of scissors. Adam Hangman Page didn't show up when it was his turn to enter the ring when his music hit. He was waiting to attack Swerve from behind during his entrance. Nick Jackson lost his temper and threatened to fire Adam Hangman Page if he didn't get in the ring. Swerve was left locked out of the cage after Hangman complied. He then had a tense standoff with Okada that allowed Team AEW to take control. So, yeah, there was a moment in this match where Adam Hangman Page accidentally clotheslined Okada. So I was wondering what they were going to do with Okada and Hangman going into All In. Clearly, I think that's the direction now with Swerve and with another matchup with Bryan Danielson, and the Elite obviously have a matchup with the Acclaimed and Jack Perry. Obviously, by the end of this match, we know where he's going as well. So Adam Hangman Page looks like he's going to be wrestling Okada, which could be an outstanding matchup for sure. Jeff Jarrett came out and helped Swerve free his trapped hand and get into the cage. The crowd erupted when he and Hangman started trading punches with each other, obviously calling back to their long-standing feud. So again, long-term storytelling here, long-term booking, paying off yet again here as Swerve and Adam Hangman Page redo their rivalry. Part of the cage was busted open and allowed some to escape and fight around the ring. Several people went through tables, including Jack Perry, when Darby Allin dropped from the cage ceiling onto him with a coffin drop. Jack Perry was handcuffed to the cage and beat with kendo sticks and an unprotected chair shot from Mark Briscoe, and he still would not give up. I ain't gonna lie, that unprotected chair shot was actually very hard to watch, no doubt about it. It even prompted Corey Graves to tweet about it on X. He wasn't trying to, be a us versus them mentality or anything. He was just pointing out that those chair shots are not good for you. Obviously, he knows. I think he had to end his career due to something like that. So at the same time, he was just pointing out it's not worth it in the long run. So I fully understand that. I get the criticism there, but Jack Perry definitely took a beating with that chair shot. So I definitely cringe, but hopefully AEW doesn't start doing those things again. Obviously, the big chair shot that's always remembered in my head is the one where Shawn Spears ended up cracking Cody Rhodes and busted him wide open in the back of the head. That was brutal as well. I just don't know if it's necessarily that we need to do nowadays. However, it fits the stipulation here with blood and guts. So it's a minor nitpick. I just hope Jack Perry is okay. You take those chair shots too often, it can lead to some severe damage moving forward. Obviously, we've seen from wrestlers in the past. So let's just be careful there. Darby Allin grabbed a gas can from under the ring and poured it onto him before threatening to light him on fire if he did not give up and give him a TNT Championship match at AEW All In London. Matt Jackson agreed to give Darby Allin a TNT title match and quit the match for the Elite to save Jack Perry from being set ablaze. Obviously, there's a little bit of imagery there, in my opinion, of Jack Perry kind of being strung up here, almost like in a cross position. He looked a little bit like Jesus here with his long hair and his beard. I don't know if that was the effect they were kind of going for here, but he was definitely taking a beating for sure. And with Matt Jackson, finding it in his heart to save his teammate here, to agree to give Darby Allin a TNT Championship match at All In. I like that, the way they set up that match. That was cool. A part of me didn't like the fact that the match ended in I quit. I'd rather just see a pinfall victory here, especially after all the stuff that they were doing. It just didn't feel like it was as special as some of the other blood and guts matches we've gotten before, because obviously they ended in pinfalls and things like that, or submissions. This is more of like it was like an I quit match, so to speak. So it was a little kind of threw me off a little bit, no doubt about it. Bouts like this are hard to judge because they're so far removed from traditional pro wrestling. Even though there was a story being told here, most of what we saw was a series of weapon spots that escalated in violence as the match progressed. All 10 of these men put in a lot of work into it, and we'll definitely feel the effects for quite some time for sure. We saw some creative moments sprinkled across the match, but there was some stalling for some time in some places as they waited to set up the next spot. Some fans are definitely going to love this. Some fans are definitely not going to like this. I, for one, didn't mind it for sure. I just kind of felt like I said, the I quit part of it was kind of like, well, I would have rather just seen someone just win. But I understand what they were trying to do here. They were trying to set up a match with Darby Allin and Jack Perry at All In. You could maybe argue you saved that that build for that matchup maybe till next week or something. So we've got like a month to go before we get to All In for sure. I can understand that criticism, and maybe you just use this match to pay off the matchup here for sure. They used it to build up another match though at the end of this, so in a way, it was kind of befitting of the whole thing too, because AEW, the team AEW, obviously brought the Elite down to where it was just like Matt Jackson and Jack Perry was about like the only two guys left standing. So they really had no choice but to kind of quit. But at the same time, it just felt a little bit like I would rather have just seen somebody just take the pinfall here. But at the same time, I can't begrudge them for trying to tell a storyline here when it comes to the TNT Championship. So we'll see where they take it at All In. I think that'll be a great match between Jack Perry and Darby Allin, no doubt. But yeah, all things considered, this match was fun to watch. If you're into this sort of thing, if you're not into the blood and guts nature of things, it's probably not the match for you. But at the same time, they do a pretty good job with these matches. I think all things considered, every year they tend to pay off in some respect, one way or another. And like I said, the Hangman Page and the Swerve stuff, that was great. There was a spot in this match where obviously we had a bunch of staplers as well, where they tried to staple Swerve Strickland, but Swerve Strickland didn't really care about the staples because he's a madman. He took the staples and ended up stapling Okada's middle finger at one point when he, gave him the bird, and then of course he ended up stapling Adam Hangman Page in the cheek. So again, this was great stuff all the way around for sure. But like I said, if that's not your thing, you're probably not going to be into it for sure. But good show for Dynamite this week, I thought, in my opinion, all things considered. Coming up on Friday night, we've got the Royal Rampage match, which is something they do every year with the blood and gut stipulation when they have the two rings to kind of have like, it's kind of like their version of the Royal Rumble to a degree. I would like to maybe see this become, obviously they're using it for a World Championship match at Grand Slam, so that they are putting that stipulation in there for the World Championship opportunity. But at the same time, I just feel like it would be something that maybe you should use to build to a big show. Grand Slam is kind of a bigger Dynamite show for sure, but it's not like a pay-per-view level event. And normally the winner of this match is not going to be considered World Championship contender enough to win the belt whenever they go up against the champion. Hopefully that may change at some point, but I don't think that's going to happen this year with Swerve Strickland being the world champion, or Bryan Danielson, whatever that may be. Apparently, I think Grand Slam, I'm not sure exactly when that takes place, but it's probably going to be after All In, I believe. So it may be Bryan Danielson at that time. We'll just have to wait and see. But don't quote me on that. I may be wrong on the date for sure. But I still like the Royal Rampage, the stipulation and the gimmick for the match. So I'm looking forward to that this week on Rampage to give us something worth watching on Rampage this week. So I think that's awesome. Of course, we now have a few matches for AEW All In coming up in London next month for sure. As we now know, that's Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson for the AEW World Championship. AEW Women's World Championship, Toni Storm versus Mariah May. We now know officially it's MJF versus Will Ospreay. We'll see if they add Pac to that match. And of course, Darby Allin versus Jack Perry for the TNT Championship as well. So good things all the way around there, in my opinion. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. So I'm excited to see AEW All In start to come together. Much like SummerSlam, I think that AEW and WWE are doing a good job of building up to some of their biggest shows, and in AEW's case, their biggest show of the year. So I'm looking forward to see what they're doing with all this sort of good stuff. I think both companies are doing a great job right now of building their storylines and their feuds and their characters, and I think that's great for pro wrestling. I'm just happy to see pro wrestling back in a good spot, because for a lot of years we had to put up with a lot of nonsense from one particular man who was running a company in WWE and had no competition. So I'm excited to see that kind of changing a bit here now. So that's great to see. But what do you guys think? Are you guys excited about what AEW is doing right now? Do you think it deserves some more criticism? What do you guys think about some of the feuds? Let me know down in the comment section what you guys think. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And until my next video, guys, take care and God bless.